I'm just following directions.
I think we should probably get started. I'm not sure how long the discussion will take, but give us as much time as possible. So I'm Mark Beck. I'm currently president of the council. And this is really just a kind of a touch base and feedback session from the council to the congregation. With our new policy-based governance system, we've gone through some changes on how we, as a council, want to communicate with the congregation. And one of the bases, of policy-based governance is that the corporate entity of, in this case, council or board, is supposed to communicate with the shareholders. And the shareholders in this case is the congregation and members and even people who use our building, just anybody who's really invested in the life of Christ the King. So this is one of our opportunities to do that. And so we'd like to hear any feedback from the congregation on how they think things are going, what they feel we could be doing better, what we're doing well if you're feeling generous, and this is also an opportunity for the council to kind of let the congregation know what we have been doing and what's in the pipeline and what our plans are for the future. So I thought I'd just start with that piece. So as the council, and you've heard this a lot, we are in the process of moving to policy-based governance. So every council meeting, we are assigning the council members sections of the policy manual to read and deliberate on. If you've looked through the policy manual, it's not a real exciting task. But so what we do is we take a section each month, go through it, and then we discuss at our meeting. What points make sense? What points don't make sense? What needs to be addressed? What can be updated? Things like that. So a portion of our meeting is pretty wild and exciting and dedicated to policy. Another thing we're doing that actually is fairly exciting is, as a council, we want to further engage the community. And that community extends beyond CtK. Definitely includes it, but extends beyond it as well. So each month, we are inviting a guest to our council meetings. This last month, it was a representative from the Warming Center and the HRDC. Came and chatted with us for about half an hour about what the HRDC does, what their missions are in Gallatin Valley, and actually in Park and Marr counties as well. And then how that's changing and what their needs are, and how a church, not just CtK, but CtK as well, could engage with them and help them in their mission. And then, thus, partnering with them to bring all the good work they do to Gallatin Valley. So that was really great. What we're planning on is every other month. So last month we had someone from the community. This month we're going to have someone or someone's from CtK, and who that is our 3 graduating seniors this year. They're going to come to our council meeting and talk to us about the youth program, what they gained from CtK, how that affected them, and what their plans are. So we're really excited about that, to chat with them. Another thing that the council is doing, we're really trying to have an exciting faith-building environment in the church. We think that matches up with our corporate goals of everyone is expanding their worshiping and learning and serving. So we've started a process of using the Kindle curriculum for small groups. And there's 4 different curriculums there. The first one is Building Faith, and that's what at least all of us on the council have either been through or taught or are going through currently. I think they're finished up. And the staff as well. And what we hope is that as we have people go through those, that they would be able to facilitate or lead another session for the congregation. And our goal is that anybody who wants to participate in that will have the opportunity to participate in that. And our hope is that we can encourage everybody to want to do that. So what we're planning is having, as people go through it, to start their own small groups, their own clusters, and broaden that out. And then the first generation or second generation people can then lead their clusters. And pretty soon we'll have everybody in the church having participated in something like this. And then you might end up going through the same curriculum multiple times, which I think is great because you can get a different perspective with new people and build new relationships. So I'm really excited about that. I will be starting my small group that I'll be leading in May. So if you're interested, talk to me. We'll be going through building faith, building individual faith. And I'm pretty flexible for time, so if you have a time in mind, let me know, and we'll see if we can accommodate that. But I'd be really excited to have some people approach me and say, hey, I'd love to be in the group. So that's something that we'd really like to do, and then long term, maybe we'll have the entire congregation have gone through all 4 of those. And then as new members come in, we can say, hey, we think that this is a really exciting opportunity, and as a church, all of us have done this, and we think that new members would benefit greatly, and it would let new members really build personal relationships with existing members, and we think that that's super important as a council. So those are really kind of what the council's been doing and what our plan is. And that's really all I have. Does anyone have any questions or comments for me? If not, I will hand it.
You didn't even give him like a minute.
Yes.
Okay. This is my own naivete, and I could probably ask my spouse and he would answer for me, but is there ever conversation about offering up the council agenda, like publicly, like as a part of the bulletin? Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, you guys are doing all these wonderful things, and I had no idea. I didn't ask, to be fair, right? But like even just your guest speakers each month, I think it's just fantastic, and maybe that is available in places that I'm not looking. But I feel like even just like a paragraph once a month in the bulletin to be like, you guys should know some of the excellent leadership development and community listening that we're doing, because it makes me really proud. But I wouldn't have known to be proud if I hadn't happened to be here this morning.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I want to say quite a bit about that. I second it.
Okay.
Really right on.
So we know that that's an issue, and that's partly why we're trying to do an adult forum quarterly, essentially. So that would be a start to that. But you're right, something a little more timely would be nice. The minutes are available in the library, but again, that's...
You have to come to the library.
Yeah, you have to go to the library.
And our website still says the 2018 Church Council.
Right, and it's, yeah.
Oh, our website still has the 2018
Yeah.
Church Council.
So
So I was gonna say, look at the website, but
yeah, that's tough. And
maybe we can.
maybe once a month or something, putting it into the Friday newsletter
Yeah.
would be advent, just a blurb. Yeah, we could.
I mean, I would love to think that we all have the gumption to go searching. And yes,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean,
I do best when things slap me in the face, so.
we definitely will look at doing something like that.
Like, toot your horn a little, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely. Jerry, did you have some
No,
more to
that's
add?
it. Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
Yes, Ian.
I'll add that I appreciate you doing this. I mean, that communication part's a long-standing problem, right? And it's always hard to push out the information you have into the various cracks and crevices of the congregation. You know, any particular person might see 5 to 10% of what's going on, maybe a little more. So, I guess I just am grateful that you're doing this and would encourage you to keep it up. And if you need help, you know, to let us know or ask or be transparent, because it just seems like there should be some equal solution. And at least my experience was there's not. It's pretty hard work. It's tedious to communicate to people. So.
Yeah, it's tough to know what people want to hear, you know, in terms of what's going on and what's, you know, just noise to them. They don't, you know, I feel like, yeah, we talk about, you know, oh, we're moving to policy-based, man, and people just, I don't know, maybe they don't care, but we keep harping on it, and maybe it's just noise to people, but it's a huge deal for us, you know, so I feel bad that we keep going back to that, but, you know, it's a definite transition and a lot of work for us, so, you know, things like that, tough to communicate about, but, thank you.
Your efforts are appreciated.
Thank you.
I have one more.
Yes.
More things to say. I also think about it from like a nominations committee perspective, of like you're trying to like every year harness interest in council, and it's sort of like this cloaked body that like people don't necessarily even know what happens, and I think it's harder to garner interest and participation
But if
if
they
people
know
don't have
it-
a sense of, oh my gosh, what neat opportunity for faith enrichment, for community enrichment, blah, blah. So it's also like a setting of the stage for the big ask of, would you like to think about serving our council?
That's an excellent point, thank you. Yeah.
Can I just add on that policy piece? If you are bored and want to go to the website or you need some bedtime reading,
Yep.
the policy manual is posted on the website. And the very last part of it, in Appendix C, shows our agendas. And so if you're kind of wondering, why do we keep saying policy-based governance, and what does that mean? Our agendas look very different this year than last year. So really looking at the big picture and talking about what is happening as a whole and not getting into the nitty-gritty like details and spending 30 minutes deciding which, or if we're going to approve a lawnmower or something, I don't know. Like it's a lot more big picture conversation, learning. I know the lawnmower conversation was very lengthy last year. I don't know why. That's just an example. I'm not picking on the lawnmower, but I just felt like the committee did the work and we just needed to approve it. And so moving to policy has helped us, is helping that. So when the committees do the work, the board can just make the, you know, stamp of approval, so to speak, and then it happens in a lot faster pace. So if you're curious, you could look at that policy manual.
Also, another thing that's exciting about the policy manual, actually, well, relatively exciting. It's below the agenda is actually our calendar of events, our yearly calendar of events. And by events, I don't mean, you know, like, oh, Shrove Tuesday pancake breakfast. I mean, like every February we, you know, do a budget approval. That's the wrong example, but you get what
Also
I mean.
exciting.
Yeah.
Right.
But
It is all relative.
you can see when things are going to happen throughout the year. You know, like when does the audit committee meet? Well, it's on that calendar, so you can see audit committee meets in July. So if you have something to bring before the audit committee, you'll know when they're going to meet and who should be looking at things like that. So That's also really helpful, and especially for, you know, people who are coming into the council. That way they can glance at that and say, when do we do this? Oh, it's in November. That's when we have to, you know, formalize our yearly spending plan, you know, for example. So that's, if you're so inclined, you can take a peek at that, and hopefully that gives some transparency and you know, at least a timeline of when things happen. So, anything else? Anyone?
I'm good for now.
Yeah, Dave.
I'll ditto all of the above, but yeah, the communications just really has to be there to get it out to us, you know, and what's really happening, okay? I've read the policy manual.
Mm-hmm.
Are you changing that every month?
We're trying. Well,
And
we're not.
So are you gonna advise us that, wait a minute, go look at this, and here's the person who's responsible this month, that, yeah, you got some ideas for the policy? How do we participate to, so that you can know what the congregation's thinking before all of a sudden it's, you did what? Because that's kind of, I think what happens way too often is that it's not the involvement, it's all of a sudden, oh, we changed the policy to do this, and nobody really knew about it other than maybe council.
So what you're looking for is anytime we do policy changes, how will that be broadcast essentially to the congregation? Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
I also feel like I heard you say, how does the congregation itself participate with the policy manual? Is that fair? I mean, that's something we could visit on.
Yeah, we'll have to chat about that.
You know, I mean, if every month you're taking a piece of the policy and you're going through it, then, yeah. Do I care? 90% of the time, probably not, but.
Right, but that
wait a
way-
minute, here's my chance to put my input into it, then if it became more public,
Mhm.
then you can avoid some of those problems that show up after the fact.
Sure.
And again, who is it that, if it's not council, which is what it sounds like you're trying to get away from,
Well,
then who is?
for the policy
Who
manual.
is in charge of the committees?
Well, for the policy manual, the council is, that's their document. So anything dealing with that, if you think something's weird with the policy and you'd like to see that changed, council's definitely where you want to go. Anybody on council for that. Okay, for committees, like if, you know, you see cracks in the ceiling or something, and you think building and grounds need to be aware of that, you can come to council, but we're probably just gonna talk to Mary Alice. So,
I think my question is, do I get a list of committees and their responsibilities? How do I know I go talk to Mary Alice?
that's a good question.
Like, doesn't make sense to have just a standing list.
Yeah, and it's tough because
If
it's pretty
council's
fluid.
trying to avoid
Mhm.
My programs.
what they used to do, then if you don't want me to go talk to council, I gotta know that I have to go talk to Mary Alice. And I don't have that list, and I don't have, okay, what is the total list
Mhm.
of, here are my options, and I got this thing that I want to talk to somebody about. How do I figure out what group that is? Or no, I just keep talking to my council president, he's overloaded with everything, and that's not what he wants to do anyhow.
I think you're always safe going to the council, because if it's something, we'll forward it on to who it needs to be. I know that's maybe,
But that becomes counter to what you're trying to
but
accomplish.
we're not actually dealing with that policy. We're just passing the buck essentially, which doesn't sound great. But the other point person would be the lead pastor, because they are, as lead pastor, they are head of staff, unpaid and paid. So they would forward, or Pastor Lindeen would route that appropriately, and that's as the head of staff, that's her job to do. So you can always go to Pastor Lindeen about those things. We will definitely try and formulate a list and have that in a accessible place, because I do think that's important, you know, when.
Which we brought up at the last.
Yeah, and we just haven't really gotten it done. And part of the problem is, building and grounds has been great because Mary Alice is the head of that, and, you know, she took the reins and that's essentially it. We have other committees that are a little more hesitant to have, so it just kind of, there's no set person there to go to. Worship and Arts is a good example of that. You know, I've been liaison to them on the council for a while, and we just haven't ever selected ahead, no matter how much we push on it, it just kind of doesn't happen. So I'd love to give you a name for Worship and Arts, but I really don't have one, you know, and we've asked a few people and they said, no, I really can't help you. Yes, Pastor Grant.
As we've been saying in council, it's a cultural shift for the life of the congregation, including those committees.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, they need to understand that it's no longer going to go through council, it's going to go through them.
Yep.
And so as those committees gather, to identify who's going to be the point of contact. So if somebody has a care and concern they want to bring up, they need to identify who that person is going to be. That the buck's no longer going to be passed.
You can make a decision after
Yes.
So two things. With respect to the institutional shift, I'm noticing that this happened. This is not unusual, but it happens at a lot of levels of the church. There are ways that, and I think most churches get things done that are just kind of institutionally entrenched is too negative a word, but you know because you know, and you've been around long enough to know who understands what. And you find out pretty quickly what you don't know when you chair a committee or your second or third year of your attendance at a new church. So I think at a lot of levels of the church, there's this like trying to, not necessarily to change who does what, but to make that more transparent. You know, for me, it's like, well, who do we go to when there's a crack in the ceiling? What did we do last time that happened? And it's often not as simple and straightforward of an answer as one would hope. But I really do appreciate like this monthly calendar routine. I think that's really helpful because the other thing that in the current and historical way of operating that's challenging is we do have people who are used to and have often spoken into situations in the church, but figuring out how to, for those of us who like to speak into decisions, figuring out how to do that in a way that's timely and effective, because if it comes at a time that nobody's ready to think about it or take action on it, sometimes that can be lost, and we don't want people's sense of agency in the community to be lost with that. So that's one piece. And my question for council in this policy-based governance and kind of passing the buck appropriately, I think, on the committees is what's happening on the policy side to help committees feel empowered to make these decisions? Because since building and grounds has been the example du jour,
That's because you're so active and organized.
kind of you say. When do I know, for example, like is there a dollar amount that says, make this decision, we don't want to hear about it? Because there's a little bit of like fear and trepidation of like, when are you going to make a decision that's going to blow up some long-standing precedent or overstep the boundaries and so I think in terms of policy, I'm sure this is happening, but I'd love to know more about how policies are being created that not only tell the committees they're supposed to make these decisions, but empower committees to make these decisions with confidence.
No, that you're absolutely right, and we've been discussing and talking about that as well. And I think it's been the detail's been maybe glossed over a little bit too much, because in theory, when we do the spending plan, if we say building and grounds has $18,000 to spend, you know, that should in theory give you permission to spend up to $18,000. If you want to buy, you know, an $18,000 leaf blower at the beginning of the year, that's your prerogative. But then in theory, Lindy would cut you off as head of staff that you've spent your budget and we can't repair any sidewalks. I don't know how well that would act, or how well that actually goes over right now.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we don't actually have, like, if we have an 18,000 budget,
Right.
18,500 of it is spoken for.
Right.
With cracks in the parking lot. And so I think there is this yeah, the sense of like the devil's in the details and how do we, like
And
I said, and I'm all for it. It's just, like as a committee chair, it sends me right back to council.
Yeah.
Which I know is counterproductive to what you wanted me doing.
And I think,
so
I think
that's
it's learning on our part too,
Yeah.
and a part of that is, this was the very first spending plan that we've done under this type of system, so obviously, it's gonna need tweaks and changes, and hopefully, we'll get it to a place where we can say, this is your budget, you can spend it, and we've already accounted for things that are earmarked essentially. I don't know when that'll happen.
And this isn't a complaint. Like,
No,
I'm
I
cool with
understand.
the
It's
transition.
yeah, we're
I
just,
get it.
it's,
just a-
it's
yeah.
it's so hard to know, if we're doing things correctly, and I've struggled with that exact problem, what do we allow for people to just empower themselves to do, and at what budget? Because really, if we have a spending plan that already is broken down to your budget, you don't have any more empowered than you ever had. So we say, yes, we're empowering them, but without the actual capabilities to do so. And that's not fair. But it's definitely something that we are aware of and we're working on. So that's kind of the best answer I can give you.
The right one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, it's definitely, multiple people have brought it up at multiple meetings, and I just don't think we have a really good answer for it, at least in the short term. Hopefully in the long term, we'll be able to smooth that kind of thing out and get it better, not only in theory, but in practice.
I just want to go back to Dave's question. If you have a question over the governance manual, it's just like if you would like to call a head of a department or head of a committee. Just because we're talking about 2.2 doesn't mean that you can't bring something up in 4.2 and we look at it at.
Oh,
the
no,
next-
I'm, like I said, it's just, if I knew you were talking about this section, then I might actually go read that section this month, talk to Rick about it, because Rick's the guy who's in charge this month, and hey, have you thought about this, what about that? Not, and try and bite the whole
Rick's
elephant at
never
once.
That's bad planning. Bad plan.
No, but I see what you're saying. I don't know.
Well, it would be in the minutes because we.
Well, yeah,
would
but
say-
you'd like to know
That's-
beforehand,
I was
so
just
it's,
wondering if we could
But
post
we
it.
say what we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about the next month.
Right.
In the minutes.
oh, yeah, there you
So
go.
that's how they could see.
Yeah, we can publish that. I
Yes.
mean, in some sort
Well,
of
it is-
blurb, yeah.
Well, if you're gonna put a blurb
Yeah.
in the
And
Friday,
we will be reviewing this
and
and
we'll just
that.
make sure that's a highlight.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of goes back to Leah's original, okay, where do I find this, how do I know it? We're totally different generations where we find information.
And I,
Now, if you put it in Friday, I might click on the link.
I
That's
might
about
click
as
on the
far-
link too.
That's about as far as I'll go.
Mhm.
Do I think that it's back on the bulletin board? Well, yeah, I checked the bulletin board, but that's already 2 months old, so I gave up on that after I tried it twice. And so even if you do keep it current, I'm not paying attention to some of those things. It has to be a habit.
Well, I think that the Friday newsletter will be the place for that. And
Well, the link even, because if it'll take me to page after page of real information, even the summary's great, but it'll say, oh, here's where the details are.
Well, Joe can usually get the minutes done in about a page and a half. So.
and we don't even really, yeah. Oh,
We don't
sorry,
have
go
to
ahead.
do the whole, we don't have to do the whole minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, summaries.
Just a summary.
It's covered up right now, but I do post the highlights off to the side up here.
Oh, goodness.
It got covered up, I guess, for. Yeah.
How hard is it to put it?
Oh, look at that.
And I try to get that up
I don't think,
as soon as
I don't think it would be hard to put one in the bulletin. The problem with the bulletin is that they're weekly and the council's monthly. And so it would have to be, I guess we could say it goes in the second or third week of the bulletin each month.
It seems like maybe we communicate with a bigger audience.
Yeah, you definitely would. We've talked about it in the past. I don't know, we kind of try and avoid clutter in the bulletin for for kind of a multitude of reasons, but we can revisit it.
Well, maybe since this is where Joe always posts it, and to be honest, I had no idea. Maybe we just put in the bulletin of blurb, like,
Yeah.
for council highlights.
Yeah, look for council
Yes.
highlights on the board, yeah.
So there's your
Yeah.
one place.
Yeah.
You put it at the bottom of the financial section, because it's the same thing over and over.
Right, I can just say
Oh,
that.
yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. Financial highlights or in the social hall.
So, yes,
You're talking about we've been talking about two different kinds of communication though. So one is this paragraph that's like to everybody, to say, to kind of celebrate and acknowledge the work that the council's doing. And here's what you might be interested in. This person visited council this month, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the nitty-gritty level of information that you dig to if you know that you might want to speak into some issue. And I think it would be wise to think about those two separately. So there's the paragraph, there's the blurb that goes out to everybody that helps us just acknowledge and appreciate and feel that sense of pride over the work, the really good work that's happening. And maybe that's not where you drill down to the details, because once I read section 2 point
Yep.
something, I'm like,
yeah, I don't care
I'm
anymore.
done. But to have like a link or something like that for those who want that second layer
Sure.
of communication.
That's it, I think that's an excellent point.
Helpful. And I think the new piece, like maybe it's just reformatting how we help people know what's on this, but the new piece might be that little like 3 to 5 sentences of that kind of celebratory in tone. Here's what's going on. Here's what might be interesting to people who are just going to consume that information and not do anything else.
I think that's. So I don't want to take any more of Megan's time because she was actually the bulk of today.
Turns out you were the boss.
Yeah, it turns out.
Did
But-
you know you were so interesting?
No. But I will let Megan take over, and she has some exciting things to talk about rather than what I was talking about.
Yes, I think we have about 15 minutes
Yes,
to
sorry.
tackle our conversation about our new neighbors, the high school. But before we do that, please stand if you are able. I want to do a quick brain break with you all. So please stand. So a brain break is a little activity you can do in the middle of a classroom or a workshop, whatever you're doing, just to refresh your brain. So the first one we're going to do is put both hands out in front of you, and you're going to put either hand, your pinky out, and on the opposite hand, put your thumb up. And now you switch. And now you switch. And switch. And switch. And switch. And switch. Okay, good. How you doing? One more. Take your right hand and touch your nose. Take your left hand and grab your earlobe. You're underneath your opposite. Okay. Now switch. Oh my gosh. And switch. You've done this a few times. And switch. Yeah. And I get to watch all of you do it. And switch. Good job. Good job. Good job. All right. You can sit down. What are we doing with that brain break? What's happening there? Resetting. You're crossing your left and right brains, right? So there's all sorts of little brain break activities out there. I use them with my teachers. For those of you that don't know, I work for the Office of Public Instruction in Helen. I work in education, and I teach a lot of workshops and trainings. And sometimes when they're like, drowning after 6 hours or whatever, we just stand up and do a brain break. But it's good to cross your left and right brain. And I want you to think in that education tone as we talk about Gallatin High School. So it didn't end up in the Friday email, but we had intended to ask you to really be thinking about and praying and discerning if we are being called to serve Gallatin High School, and if so, how are we being called to serve them? So the outcome of this morning really was to try to get a feeling for how you all that are here, thank you for your time, feel about the fact that we have a new neighbor, and if we want to consider that within our realm. And if so, maybe some suggestions. And because we're kind of short on time, which is fine, I'm sure we will do this again. So a couple of things to start off with is just some of the basics. Gallatin High School is set to open in the fall of 2020. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Erica Schnee Friday morning, and she's going to be the principal of Gallatin High School, and she was happy to visit. We just did a quick 30-minute conversation. She gave me kind of the rundown of logistics and showed me the plans, the plat map, because what she said what's funny is her largest question is about transportation. Everybody wants to know what streets they're using for drop-off, what is gonna happen to traffic flow around here, and I busted out laughing thinking, that's probably one of the first questions we would get here, is also, what does transportation in this area look like? So we had a great conversation. I can share some tidbits with you, and then also know that as we have this conversation, if we continue it, she's willing to come here and visit with all of us. So she appreciated that we reached out. She knows that the neighborhood will change quite a bit, and she is open to any help or service that we can provide to the new high school. So it was a very positive conversation. So before we get into too much, I would like you at your groups or at your tables to have a quick small group discussion of if we are being called to action, yes or no, and why or why not. So please visit with yourselves that since we have this new high school coming next to us, does that mean anything for us as a congregation? Okay, what about at this table?
Continue the shelf idea.
The shelf, okay? Okay, I can speak to that. We asked about that. Anna Edwards is in charge of all homeless she's the only homeless liaison for the entire school district, which kind of blows my mind if you think about our student base. So she will be at both high schools, so she will be tasked with both. There will be a room at the new Gallatin High School with the shelf. They will continue and expand that to that, but Anna Edwards, one person, will run both. And she works with middle school and elementary as well. Okay, what about at the back table? Anything else you guys talked about?
Well, I kind of mentioned the whole idea of neighborhood, if they're in our neighborhood.
Neighborhood.
Serve the neighborhood.
Yep.
Anything else? Oh, tutoring. I don't know if they do that at the Rock.
I don't know if they do either.
No.
So a couple of the, I'm going to talk about what we know really fast, and then we'll pause this conversation for the next time. But we do know that the Rock is something they're looking at as how can we continue that sort of a service with our new space over here at our new neighborhood. We also know that, or you may not know, but Bozeman's high school students in particular love to eat off campus. It's an open campus situation. They flock to the nearby areas, Little Caesars, Wendy's, McDonald's, all of those food areas. So when this high school opens, obviously it's in a residential neighborhood. Now there is the plot of land on Oak and Cottonwood has been rezoned for business or commercial. So they know that in time, some businesses will pop up over here, but it won't be right off the bat. Their lunchroom is designed in kind of a pretty innovative way to try to engage students to stay on campus to eat. And they have built a small coffee kiosk within the foyer of the high school. So if you look at the plan and you walk in their big open entry space, there's this set of stairs that goes up because it's a multi-level building, and underneath those stairs is a coffee kiosk. They have not determined who's going to run that. If it's going to be the school food service, or it's going to be the PAC, which is the Parent Advisory Committee, or student organizations perhaps as a fundraiser, but there will be a small coffee kiosk inside. But in terms of food, that'll kind of be how they serve, and so they're looking at what that looks like. They've talked about, can we bring food trucks in at lunch on some of our driveways so that there is another option for students to eat besides the school food. She also wondered if that there might be space here for them to do staff meetings, and so I talked about the fellowship hall because she, even though it's a year and some months out, her first meeting with students that will be in Gallatin High School is next week. So she's already starting to look at building the culture of that high school, and she'll be doing the same with the staff, and she wondered about meeting in a space close to that physical location. So I talked about our fellowship hall here as being a place that might be able to happen just to start to get them in this part of town. They currently at the high school do, and some of you might do this, I think, they have the adults or parent hallway volunteers, and this was a new project this year. I know Amy does, JP does, I don't know if anybody else in this room does, but parents, once they have a background check, can sign up to volunteer to be a door greeter, essentially, during different times of the day. So morning, lunchtime, and after school, and they open the doors and greet the students, and they're there to be an extra set of eyes because the current Bozeman High School has so many entry and exit points, they can't monitor every place that somebody can enter that school. And so they wanted to just have a little extra help, and they're doing that with community. And they intend to continue that at the new high school. The difference will be there's less entry and exit points with the way this building was built, but they will still be looking for community volunteers or parents who can spend a little bit of time there each week. If you want to know where our high school students eat, just ask JP. He's learned all of their patterns at lunchtime, where they eat, who they eat with, because they're creatures of habit. So it's pretty fascinating. And then they are going to have, I don't know if this matters, but just so you know what I know, it will be the same bell schedule. So all of the schedule that Bozeman High is on, the times will be duplicated here. They have to be the same because they'll have teachers going between buildings, driving between them during the day, buses, everything, just for logistics the first couple years. All the schedules will be identical there. And they did this last, I don't remember when, but they'll do it again. They're going to do a neighborhood tour in August. So they're trying to engage the neighborhood as well so that they can be good neighbors also. So we want to be good neighbors. They want to be good neighbors. And there'll be a tour. So anybody, of course, at the church at that time would be welcome to participate in that. And we'll learn more about that as it comes. So that was kind of some of the basics that we covered at that meeting. So it is 9:50, and I have a whole bunch more questions for discussion. So I'm going to ask our church for another adult forum time. But in the meantime, I would like you guys to keep thinking about what that looks like, or what would be the areas in which we could connect. Because what's the very last thing we say when we walk out of church every Sunday morning? Worship, learn, and serve. And I think that this is a huge opportunity for us to serve. And what does that look like? But within the realm of our capabilities. You know, we're not, we have a lot going on already, so we need to think very strategically about what we think we can provide and what that looks like. You guys have any last statements or comments based on that information that you've learned this morning, or now that your brains are thinking in this space, that you'd like to share out for the good of the room? Are you, any nervousness or excitement you're feeling about our new neighbors?
Yeah, well, let's see. I would hope we could develop a program that's so inclusive that the cool people can come and the homeless people can come. So it's not just as the homeless place. We got enough of that them and us stuff.
Yeah.
Somehow put it together. That's a tough call, but if we could. If there could be some other focal idea that brings both.
Right. Okay, involving the student council? Yep.
I think student organizations
Yeah,
in general, we may have youth at this church who are connected, and we now have proximity. So JP goes and walks around at the high school, but can't like bring kids back here right away necessarily. But now there is a way to intersect with kids, you know, at the high school, and so we might also be thinking about things like scheduling, like when we schedule different kinds of youth events in proximity to things getting out at the high school, whether it's sports or after school or things like that. I think we might have to think flexibly there, and then that is going to take some strategy going that direction when we also want to stay a welcoming place for things like the preschool.
Right. Right, absolutely.
Related to that, thinking about this being a place to bridge student leadership groups between the two high schools, right? Like, how do you keep connectivity and cohesiveness among high school age students in Bozeman? And I don't know if there's intentionality around that yet, or there will be, but.
Great. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. Please come and talk to me anytime about this conversation, and we'll bring it back up within a couple months, hopefully, so we can continue talking.
Thank you.